Hi guys, and welcome to the Is It Worth It for the Ram 2, the Tier 5 American Premium Medium Tank. The tank is available from the tech tree for 1750 gold, which makes it the joint most expensive Tier 5 premium tank you can buy. It equals the Matilda Black Prince in that regard. But so it's available from the tech tree, but it's also available from the gift shop. And one of the nice things about the Ram 2 is it's one of those premium tanks that shows up on special for as much as 50% off at multiple times throughout the year or in special bundles in the gift shop. And the question we're asking today is the Ram 2 worth 1750 gold or about 900 gold if you decide to pick it up on a half price special? And as per usual, we're going to start with the history of the tank, and the Ram 2 is not actually an American tank. In fact, it's a Canadian tank, and it's a Canadian tank that was built for the British Commonwealth. So technically, I suppose this tank would be more at home with the British lines than the US lines. But as I say, it was built by Canada for the British Commonwealth forces, and it shares a lot of characteristics with British tanks. As the story goes, the Canadians wanted to increase the size of their armoured divisions and went to the US around 1941 to buy some tanks, but the US wanted to sell them M3 Lees. After the Canadians had politely said no and stopped laughing, they decided to develop the Ram 2 around 1942, and they based it around the hull of an M4. About 2,000 Ram 2s were built between 1942 and 1943, however, they never saw combat. They actually were only used as training vehicles for new tank crews. As per usual, we are going to compare the Ram 2 Tier 5 Premium Medium Tank against all the other Tier 5 Premium Medium tanks in the game. Now, I've placed these tanks in this order for a specific reason, and as I mentioned, the Ram 2 is a British Commonwealth tank. It may be Canadian, but it was built for the British Commonwealth, and that means that the Ram 2 shares a lot of similarities with the Matilda Black Prince and the Matilda IV. I don't think I've ever heard anyone compare these tanks before, but when you look at the stats and how the tanks perform and the guns on the tanks, you'll see that the Ram 2 is very similar to the Matildas. But I'm also going to be comparing it against the two German premium medium tanks and the Japanese medium tank, the Chinokai. So kicking off, we got 610 hit points, which is very good. It is a big positive for the Ram 2, and like I say, it's similar to both Matildas and the T25. Only the Hydrostat and the Chinokai, the two most recent Tier 5 Premium Medium Tank additions to the game, have less, but 610 hit points is very good, and it means that the Ram 2 can take a bit more of a beating than a lot of the other Tier 5 Premium Medium tanks can, because its armor is actually pretty good as well, but we'll talk about that when it is time. It is quite a heavy tank. It comes in at 31 tons, and as I said, it's very similar to both Matildas. In fact, it weighs about the same as the Matildas. It is heavier than the remaining three tanks, so it is a heavy tank. But unlike most of the other tanks at Tier 5 on the premium lines, it gets a very powerful engine. It has a 440 horsepower engine, which is the second best engine of all of these tanks. Only the T25 has a better engine, and it's not better by much. It's only 10 horsepower better. However, it is pushing a lighter tank, and that means that the T25 is faster. And when it comes to speed, the Ram 2 fits right in the middle. It is faster than both Matilda tanks, but it is not as fast as the two German tanks, and it is about the same with regards to top speed as the Chinokai. But because it has a 440 horsepower engine, the Ram 2 can reach 38 kilometers an hour very easily, whereas the Chinokai can't. It also means that the Ram 2 performs much better on hills. When you're going uphill or using slopes, the Ram 2 performs very well, much better than any of the other tanks, with the exception of maybe the T25 when it comes to hill climbing. So the top top speed is pretty average. It's not the quickest, but it's not the slowest, and the same can be said for the traverse speed. At 37 degrees per second, it's not the worst, but it's not the best either. And in fact, looking across these tanks, you can see that they all have pretty similar traverse speeds, with the exception of the two German tanks. The T-25 is significantly slower than the Ram 2, and the Hydrostat is significantly better. But it is very, very similar to either of the Matildas or the Chinokai when it comes to turning the hull. However, the turret traverse speed is quite good. In fact, it's the second best turret traverse speed of all the Tier 5 premium medium tanks. Only the Hydrostat has a better turret traverse, so the tank is pretty maneuverable. When it comes to view range, unfortunately we have a negative for the Ram 2, and that is that the view range is only 330 meters, which makes it the second worst. It is significantly worse than either of the Matildas or the Chinokai. It's slightly better than the T-25s, and it matches the Hydrostats. However, 330 meters, when we put it into context on a Tier 5 tank, any Tier 5 tank, 330 meters is not bad. It's not great, it could be better, but it's not bad. But definitely, compared to the other Tier 5 premium medium tanks, 330 meter view range is on the low side. The signal range, however, is okay. It's not fantastic and it's not terrible. But 570 meters, again at Tier 5 for any Tier 5 tank, is not bad. So a lot of the stats for the Ram 2 so far are pretty average. It's not bad at anything and it's not fantastic at anything either, until we come to the armor. We'll take a look at the armor here, and you can see it's got 76 millimeters of armor on front, which is better than any of the other Tier 5 premium medium tanks. The side armor on the hull is not fantastic, but 63 is still better than a lot of them, and the armor profile is very, very similar all round to the Matildas. So the armor on paper is actually pretty good, but it gets even better than that because the armor is sloped. As you can see here, the upper glacis is quite well sloped, the lower glacis is tiny and again is quite sloped, and the upper front plate extending up the hull is very, very sloped. It has some really, really nice sloping, and it doesn't stop there because the sloping continues on up the sides. You can see that the armor profile of this tank is very, very good. You've got the front of your tank, which is a wedge shape, which means that shots coming in at the sides can easily bounce. You can see you've got sloping all the way up, and even the sides are rounded, so not only are they sloped, they are rounded. So this tank can actually bounce. It is quite troll. A lot of shots you would expect to penetrate can bounce off either side. We're here on Redshire, and I'm advancing to try and spot enemy tanks. And the armor is very, very troll. There's a shot directly into my side, and it bounces on the rounded side armor. So we've bounced a shot, and the armor is incredibly troll. So I'm just advancing, and there we go. We've just side-scraped a KV-1S. The survivability of this tank is very, very good. The armor can be very, very troll, and in some games tanks have problems penning you. However, the Ram 2 does have a couple of major weak spots. It's got a machine gun turret, not just a machine gun port. It actually has a little machine gun turret, just like maybe the KV-5 has a Tier 8 for the Russians. This is significantly smaller than that machine gun port, but it is a machine gun port. It is a weak spot, and if you're facing a Ram 2, this is probably the easiest place you can shoot it to pen it and damage it. There is another weak spot on front, which is the driver's hatch here, and again, it is sloped, but not as sloped as the rest of the upper front plate, and you can easily pen a Ram 2 here. So two of the major weak spots for the Ram 2 happen to be on the front of the tank, and they are pretty easy to hit. However, the Ram 2 is also missing a weak spot that a lot of other tanks have, and that is its commander's cupola. You'll see that the top cupola, or the commander's cupola on top of the tank, is very, very small, very, very hard to hit, and basically it's almost impossible to hit it from the front of the tank. So the fact that the Ram 2 doesn't have fantastic view range is down to the fact it doesn't have a very good viewport on top. Now, for a medium tank, the Ram 2 isn't the most maneuverable. It's not bad, but a Ram 2 can easily be circled by a faster tank, and if you can't hit the weak spots or don't want to sit in front of this gun, then the easiest way to take out a Ram 2 is to get to the rear. Because the rear of the hull is only 38mm thick, and most tanks it's going to be facing are going to penetrate that with absolutely no problems. The rear of the turret is quite well armored, but it is only 51mm thick, so the rear of this tank is definitely one of its major weak spots, and if you can get to the rear, then you can do a lot of damage. But the armor on the tank is very, very troll for a few reasons. As I mentioned before, it is sloped. You'll find yourself bouncing a lot of shots you wouldn't expect to bounce, but at the same time, you'll find yourself penetrated by a lot of shots you wouldn't expect to penetrate you. So something else I'm going to be mentioning later on in the video is with the Ram 2, you do need to be quite careful when you decide to side scrape, especially around left-hand corners. And that's because your turret is actually mounted on the right of the tank. You'll see that the turret is further over to the right than the left. That means your gun is actually off-center. Your gun is actually further to the right. And that means that basically you expose more of the left-hand side of your tank before you get around a left-hand corner, and that can cause you some problems, and it causes me a couple of problems here. So I'm going to be side scraping this corner, and because I'm exposing far more of my left, we have just bounced. There's the troll armor. We've just bounced an M6 who shot me from stealth. I can't see him, but most of the left-hand side of my tank is visible to him. I can't see him till I pull out, so I've just spotted him. And I'm going to be trying to side scrape him, but as I say, the left-hand side of my tank is much bigger, and he's just managed to get an extreme shot in. Now, where did that shot go in, and why did my troll armor fail me? You can see that he put one into the shoulder of my tank. Because I was side scraping, he didn't bounce, he was actually able to put a shot into the corner of the sloped armor. So the armor can be troll, you can bounce a lot of shots, but sometimes the weird angles the Ram 2 has causes you to take damage you wouldn't expect to take. So basically, on paper, the Ram 2 is the best armored frontally of all the Tier 5 premium medium tanks, but because of that sloping, you'll find yourself bouncing a lot of shots you wouldn't normally expect to bounce, and also because of all of these weak spots, you'll find yourself being penetrated at times you don't expect to be penetrated. So I mentioned the Ram 2 has a lot of similarities to the Matilda line of tanks, and that continues with its gun. The gun on the Ram 2 is a 6-pounder, a 57mm. Now, I recently reviewed the Matilda Black Prince. If we take a look at the gun on the Matilda Black Prince, you'll see that it is also a 6-pounder, and the two guns have a very similar rate of fire, similar penetration, similar alpha damage, and even the accuracy, aim time, and weight are very, very similar. So let's take a closer look at the 6-pounder, and you'll see that the rate of fire is fantastic. It fires 26.2 rounds per minute, and you can boost that with equipment and crew skills. The penetration is not fantastic at 105. Now 105 is good enough. When this tank gets top tier, 105mm of penetration is more than enough to deal with pretty much any of the tanks you're going to be facing. However, when the Ram 2 doesn't get top tier, then it's a different story. 105mm of penetration is okay, you can do a job against a lot of tier 6s, but when you come up against tier 7s, 105mm of penetration is not good enough. However, it is solved by its premium ammo. You get 170mm of penetration with the premium ammo on the Ram 2, and 170mm of penetration is more than enough to deal with any tier 7 and below. So you can basically do a job with this tank no matter what sort of match you get it into. And while I'm on that point, this tank will get into tier 7 games. It does not get special matchmaking, but to be honest, it doesn't need special matchmaking because the gun is good enough against pretty much most tanks it can face, depending on whether or not you are willing to fire some premium ammo. But it doesn't get special matchmaking, so you will be seeing tier 7s. The alpha damage is not fantastic at 75, however, you have an amazing rate of fire, and that means you can build this damage up very, very quickly. And as I say, this tank can get up to about 2100 DPM, which is very, very good. A downside to this gun, however, is its accuracy. Unfortunately, this gun is not that accurate. It can fire shots quickly enough so that you can afford to miss 2 or 3, but it's definitely not a sniper. However, you can use it to snipe and use it as a support tank when you are not top tier. So the accuracy is not great, in fact it's borderline poor, but it can still do a job. The aim time, however, generates a problem again that I covered when I was reviewing the Matilda Black Prince, and that is that the rate of fire is faster than the gun can aim, so you can reload faster than 2.3 seconds, and it means that if you're firing your gun as soon as it reloads, it means you're not fully aimed, and that can cause you to miss a lot of shots. However, that was a bigger problem with the Matilda Black Prince because you didn't have a lot of ammo and you couldn't afford to spam shots or miss that many shots. It's not an issue with the Ram 2 because the Ram 2 comes with 92 rounds of ammunition, and that means you can afford to spam shots, you can afford to miss shots, you've got plenty of ammunition, and I don't think I have ever run out of ammo in a Ram 2. One interesting thing to note is the Ram 2 doesn't actually get any HE, so if you are going to be loading ammo, you've only got a choice between AP and APCR. Another thing I need to note is that the gun depression on this tank is very, very good. It has 10 degrees of gun depression. So that means that it has a powerful engine that doesn't struggle going up hills, and you can also use this tank hull down very, very well, hide those weak spots and use the gun depression in order to get your gun on target. So the Ram 2 is a very, very capable hill warrior. Okay folks, let's see some of the things I've been talking about in action. So in this particular replay, we're going to be looking at the acceleration of the tank. As you can see, we accelerate pretty quickly. I'm already up to top speed, but 38 kilometers an hour isn't exactly fast. But we're also going to see not only the engine power, we're going to see the gun depression in action, we're going to see the gun in action. So we are here on Prokhorovka, and this is the very first game I played in the Ram 2 with an 80% crew. No crew skills at all. Crew aren't even 100%. But the reason I chose this replay is I am bottom tier. I am a tier 5 in a tier 7 game. And I'm missing quite a few shots, mainly down to my crew, I believe. But I am bottom tier and I'm up against some tier 7 heavy tanks. And we're using our standard AP. So we're going up a rise and we're still doing 20 kilometers an hour. So I'm using my gun depression. Would have been helpful if I put it into first person view. But we're using the gun depression. We're using the I was going to say camo rating. I actually don't know what the camo rating on this tank is like. I don't have Sixth Sense, and I decide to fall back. But I'm still using the standard AP. And we're just trying to get shots, and I'm able to use the gun depression. But you're going to see that the aim time is quite slow. For such a rapid firing gun, you can see I'm reloaded long before I actually shoot or actually fully aim. And while the gun is not that accurate, we're still putting shots into this tier 7 TD. So we've done 226 damage, possibly more with some blind shots. Side of an M6. And we bounce. And we put another 80 damage in. The rate of fire allows this tank to have huge amounts of CPM. So I'm dealing with this IS. I've switched to my premium ammo. I've got 170 millimeters of penetration with the premium ammo, and I was again able to do 159 damage to him very, very quickly. So there is RT in play, and I fall back. I don't want this IS focusing me down, so I'm going to advance, see if we can sneak some shots into his commander's cupola, if I can find it. There we go. And we bounce. Okay, KV-85, and I'm able to again put a shot into his lower glacis. Still on the premium ammo for this IS. IS dies. And I'm switching back to regular AP. But even as bottom tier, and that's the main reason I picked this replay, even as a bottom tier, you'll see at the end of this game, it was quite an impressive damage game for a bottom tier tank. So T-29, another tier 7 heavy, and I'm using my premium ammo again, trying to go for his machine gun port. Okay, he's straightened up and we finally do some damage. But look at the rate of fire, and if I shoot before being fully aimed, the gun is not accurate, but when I fully aim it, it is actually pretty good. So again, we're just shooting tier 7 tanks. I'm back on my regular AP, by the way. I don't need to use premium ammo for the side of a Comet. You see, the accuracy at long distance is not fantastic, but the rate of fire means that you can still hit some of your shots. Not all of them, but when you're firing a shot every 2 seconds, or 1.98 seconds, it really doesn't matter if you miss a couple of shots. So 6 enemy tanks left. And you see how quickly this gun can fire. More damage put in there. So side of a T-34-85. Switch to premium. Long distance shots. And we're able to take him out for kill number 1. And once again, we're back in our regular AP, and we are just pumping shots out. But unlike the Matilda Black Prince, because I've got quite a bit of ammo, I can afford to spam shots. I would not be taking shots like that in a Black Prince or a Matilda 4, because you really just don't have the ammo capacity. But the Ram 2 does not have that issue. You can just keep firing and firing. And that's one of the reasons I think the tank is underrated. So I've had bigger damage games, but I'm just showing you guys that if you use your premium ammo selectively, you can be very, very effective, even in a tier 7 game. So I know there are 3 tanks on the hill, that's why I'm hanging here. I'm still playing as support. We're up to 1100, over 1100 damage that we are aware of, and we did fire quite a few blind shots. So the gun does have its downsides. As I say, it reloads faster than it aims, so you do tend to miss shots. So here I'm trying to use standard AP on the side of the turret on the T-29. I switched to premium ammo. And you can see that the accuracy is also not very good. That shot goes really, really low. So I'm missing all these shots. Admittedly, I don't have much to aim at. But yeah, it reloads faster than it can aim. The accuracy at distance isn't great, but the DPM is fantastic and you can just pump out shots. So we're capping. 2 tanks left. 2 dangerous TDs. They're both sitting on the hill. Going for a couple of blind shots. And if I'd been clever, I probably could have been in the cap circle, but I'm more interested in doing damage than I am getting cap points. So I don't really want to rush the cap. We're capping, and if the enemy want to win this game, they're going to have to reveal themselves. Okay, finally someone spotted, so shot into the T-40, someone else takes him out. Hellcat, bounce on his side, time that one nicely, get another shot in, and finally miss a shot. So at this point the Hellcat's running for it. I decide, okay, I might as well pop into the cap, get some cap points, and maybe get another shot into this Hellcat as he comes down the hill. And he dies before we can connect our shot. That was only a second class with a Confederate. But as far as damage goes, I did 1,350 damage, so quite a few of my blind shots did go in. I got 1 kill and 805 XP, even though I was bottom tier in a tier 7 game. And the gap between tier 5 and tier 7 is quite big. Even as bottom tier, the Ram 2 is still a pretty solid tank that can do a job even when it gets into higher tier games. We got to show off the gun and the fact that it reloads faster than it can aim, and also that it's not that accurate. I was spamming some shots, but I was aiming as much as I could, and I managed 34 hits out of 61 shots. Thankfully, the Ram 2 has the ammo to be able to do that. If I was in a Matilda 4 or a Matilda Black Prince, I would have run out of ammo long before I reached 61 shots. Of the 34 hits, only 20 pens, so the penetration is lacking at distance. It's also lacking when you're up against higher tier tanks, and you really do need to have some premium installed on the tank. Let's talk about the crew. And the Ram 2 is a fantastic crew trainer. It has 5 crew members. So that's a commander, a gunner, a driver, a radio operator, and a loader. And if we take a look at the tech tree, it basically means that as a crew trainer, the Ram 2 can be used to train up new crews or train existing crews all the way from the M4 at tier 5, which has the same crew layout, all the way up the American medium tanks, the M4A3E8, M4A3E2, T20 Pershing, and M46 Patton, all of which have the same crew layout. The Tier 10 M48 Patton, unfortunately, is a little bit different because you'll end up having a spare radio operator because the commander is also the radio operator in the Tier 10. But basically, the Ram 2 is a decent crew trainer for the majority of American tanks all the way up to Tier 10. And some of the lower tier American medium tanks don't have the same crew layout. So you've got an extra radio operator in the M2 medium, and you've got an extra, gunner. You've got an extra gunner in the M3 Lee. But from tier 5 up, the Ram 2 is a very, very good crew trainer. So let's talk about equipment. Now, the equipment choices I currently have on the tank are equipment choices I made a couple of years ago. I haven't changed them. I haven't swapped them out. I might do that after doing this review, but you can see that we don't have very many equipment choices. And we're going to kick off with the toolbox. And as per usual, a toolbox is a very, very good piece of equipment, and I do recommend a toolbox on pretty much any tank, but only if you have a spare toolbox and only if you have a spare equipment slot, because it is quite a heavy tank. Because it is quite well armored, because it can take a bit of a beating, a toolbox would not be a bad equipment choice. An enhanced gun laying drive to increase aiming speed is something I do recommend on this tank. It suffers from the same problem as a lot of fast firing guns, and that is that the gun reloads faster than it actually aims. So if you're firing as soon as you're reloaded, you are not fully aimed, and anything you can do to get your aim time down in this tank is good. Unfortunately, the tank doesn't come with vert stabs, but it does come with an enhanced gun laying drive that reduces your aiming speed by 10%, so I do recommend a gun laying drive on this tank. Coated optics are another viable choice because one of the weak points of this tank is its view range, and coated optics would get you up to 363 meters view range, and it is possibly a viable choice. Also, because this tank doesn't get special matchmaking, you'll find yourself in tier 7 or higher tier games quite often, and you may end up having to play it more as a support tank. In that case, maybe Binocs are a viable option. It is your choice, but I really do recommend one of these two pieces of equipment to boost your view range. View range is one of the weak points of this tank. Gun rammer is something that I actually went for on this tank, and I probably shouldn't have. Yes, 10% more DPM is fantastic, and I do recommend it on pretty much most tanks, but the rate of fire on this tank is fantastic anyway, and the fact I've got a gun rammer on it basically means I suffer even more from reloading before I can actually aim my gun. So pretty much the equipment choices I actually made at the beginning were choices before I actually knew how to drive the tank or reviewed it, and I would probably remove the medium caliber gun rammer from the tank in order to put on coated optics or Binocs, but again, the choice is up to you. A medium spall liner again is possibly a viable option, because for a medium tank this is quite well armored and a spall liner might be able to help you, but really I don't have that many issues with HE in this tank because it is quite well armored. A lot of tanks firing HE will have problems penning you. Not all of them, but quite a few of them. Enhanced springs or improved suspension I think are a waste of money for the tank. You're not going to be doing that much track damage to yourself. You're a medium tank, not a light tank. You're not going to be doing a lot of self-inflicted track damage, and if enemy tanks are shooting your tracks, then usually you have the gun and DPM to get yourself out of a tricky situation. Wet ammo rack is possibly an option. I don't recommend it because I don't get ammo racked in this tank very often. I can't ever remember getting ammo racked in any of the games I was playing to get footage for this review, so really I don't think it's worth putting on. Improved vents is a piece of equipment I did go for because I do like putting vents on most of my tanks if I can get away with it. +5 to all crew skills is fantastic. That's also +5 to my view range, +5 to my reload, my aim time, everything else. Yeah, so I think vents are very, very strong, but again, it is completely up to you. You might choose to go with some other piece of equipment, maybe coated optics or Binocs instead of vents. It is completely up to you as to how you play the tank. The last piece of equipment for the Ram 2 is the camouflage net, and again, it is viable. I don't use it, but it is completely up to you. If you find yourself getting into a lot of higher tier games, if you find yourself having to use the tank a lot more as a sniper, as a support tank, then a camo net might be viable, but it is a medium tank. I try to play it quite a lot like a medium tank and play it aggressively when I can, so really I didn't go for camo net, but the choice is up to you. Okay folks, it is time for the overview game, a game where I show you all the strengths and weaknesses of whatever tank I'm reviewing in one replay. We found ourselves back here on Redshire, and I am top tier. Now I have said that basically the Ram 2 is an absolute monster when it gets to top tier. It is a very, very good tank at top tier, but I showed you a replay earlier where you can still do a job even when you're bottom tier. But I'm expecting to have a good game because I am top tier, and I do. So once again, I'm playing with a crew I'm training up, so no skills, no sixth sense. I don't even think the crew are 100% yet. But first of all, I'm going to be showing you that the tank we're doing 26 kilometers up a rise. You've got a lot of engine power. Even though you may not have the fastest top speed, the engine is powerful enough, and even going uphill didn't slow me down too much. So I'm trying to do some spotting, and you're going to see that the view range is not fantastic, and I really should swap out the gun rammer for something like coated optics or Binocs. But anyway, I'm trying to spot and I'm having no luck. So that wasn't my spot, that was the Crusaders. And normally in a medium tank I'd be expecting to get quite a few spots from here. There's my other Canadian cousin beside me, the T-14. But I'm just wondering what I can do in this game. And there we go. M4 decides to advance. Look at the inaccuracy. We put a shot into the T-28. We've got the rate of fire to take him out, and that M4 decides to run for it. So the Ram 2 is designed on the chassis of the M4, so I suppose that makes the M4 my cousin in this particular game as well. So I'm not getting effective shots. I'm playing around with relocating. I'm wondering, is the AMX-40 going to move out? But he doesn't. So I decide to relocate and spot a T-34 on top of the hill. Not much to aim at, but we're still able to get one shot in. And look at the accuracy. That one misses. That one misses even though I aimed fully. Again, able to get another shot in. And we're able to take him out for kill number 2. So TD's on the hill. We've got shots on the PZ SFL. And look at the rate of fire. 2 shots in, kill number 3. Churchill 1, difficult customer. If I can get him in his side, I can pen him. So we get 1 shot in. We bounce, we get another shot in. And now we're starting to bounce. We track him. And look how quickly we're able to deal damage here. So we take him out for kill number 4. So even though a couple of shots bounced, we still had the rate of fire to be able to take him out. I really do think the Ram 2 is underrated, and to be honest, before starting to do this review and before starting to play the tank on a regular basis, I thought it was a pretty average tank, but I realize that it's actually a lot stronger than I thought. Unfortunately, miss a shot on the Vespa, failed to do any more damage. Have I got shots on the 38T? I do. And we're able to get another shot in. So going for blind shots, he's moving, and the accuracy lets me down. Someone else takes him out, so the score is 8-10. We're actually losing here. Somehow we're managing to lose this, but I'm on 870 damage I'm aware of, although I know we've hit a couple of blind shots, 4 kills, and I could have, if I'd been faster, could have moved out, put a shot into the D2. But as is, enemy tanks are advancing on my position. I'm using this gun depression, waiting for the Crusader to come up, keeping an eye on the T-67 and the M4 in front of me. Still losing, score is 9-11, and I decide I'm going to move around and do some flanking. And I can do this. The tank is still pretty fast. Even though I was going uphill there, I was still doing 30 kilometers an hour. So I've relocated, I've moved across, I'm angled, going to start putting shots into this Crusader. You see the rate of fire, how quickly we're able to chew through that tank. We're able to take him out, and there we go. We just bounced the T-67. And someone else takes him out, so I'm being flanked by an M4. So I'm falling back. I'm going to see if I can get shots on him. He's advancing. Get a shot into his side. He misses, and someone else takes him out. I wish I had gotten that kill, to be honest. You'll see why at the end of the game, but we're on 1200 damage and 5 kills. And we've brought the score back to 12-12. So T-25, very dangerous medium tank, my favorite Tier 5 premium. One of my favorite premiums in the game, to be honest. And I know how dangerous he is. And he's a 2, possibly 3 hit kill for me, but we're being capped. There's a PZ-4D down to my left, but I'm going to move up, see if I can get shots in on this BDR. So I've spotted him, rush my first shot and miss it. Get a shot into his turret. Now he is on full health as well. 2 caps, or 2 tanks in the cap. All 3 tanks are in the cap. And we bounce on the gun mantlet of the T-25, bounce again, and take him out. I'm firing premium. PZ-4D hits me, but we are just going to work here. Now I'm using premium because I want to decap. I probably don't even need premium here, but we are just going to work. And there is kill number 7. Just need one more kill for Radley Walters. And at this range, the gun is accurate enough, and I'm about to get my Radleys, and I miss my shot, and yeah. Our T-67 rams the BDR to death, denying me the Radley Walters medal. But 7 kills and 1.9k damage. So as bottom tier, the Ram 2 can do a job even in a tier 7 game, and as top tier, the Ram 2 is a very, very good tank. It is very underrated. That was an ace tanker with the Ram 2. I also picked up High Caliber and Top Gun, and still annoyed I missed out on the Radleys. If only that last shot had gone in and not hit the ground. But we finished up with 1196 XP for the ace tanker, did 1941 damage with 7 kills. As top tier, the Ram 2 is very, very strong. The engine is good enough, the gun is good enough. You don't really need to fire that much premium, especially when you're top tier, but we were being capped by 3 tanks, and I decided I didn't want to risk it and didn't want bounces. But I probably could have done that damage without having to fire any premium. I fired 48 shots, 35 hits, and 30 penetrations. When you're top tier, the gun still isn't the most accurate, but you're going to pen a lot more tanks with standard AP. I received 3 hits, 2 penetrations, and 1 non-penetration, but only one of those shots actually damaged me. I spotted 2, damaged 10, destroyed 7, and did 493 assistance damage, along with 54 base defense points. And I still earned, even though I was spamming gold right at the end to stop the cap, I still earned 22,000 credits. So as a money maker, it's okay, but it's one of these tanks where you do need to have a supply of premium ammo in. Okay folks, time to sum up. Is the Ram 2 worth 1750 gold? Well, I suppose we'll start with the negative, because 1750 gold makes the Ram 2 the most expensive tier 5 premium tank you can buy. It is about 250 gold more expensive than most other tier 5 premium tanks. On the bright side, however, it does show up on sales a few times a year, and you can pick this tank up for less than 900 gold. Another negative is the Ram 2 doesn't get special matchmaking, so unlike a lot of other tier 5 premium tanks, you will see tier 7s in this tank quite a bit. Another negative for the Ram 2 is its armor, which is actually a positive. The armor is very, very good. It is very, very troll. It is well armored, and you'll end up bouncing a lot of shots in the Ram 2 that you would not expect to bounce in other tanks. So the survivability in the Ram 2 is a lot higher than it is in a lot of the other tier 5 premium medium tanks. However, the armor is also a negative, because there are a few things that I've mentioned and a couple of things I haven't mentioned yet. The first ones I've mentioned are that the Ram 2 has a couple of very, very prominent weak spots on front that enemy tanks will have absolutely no problems penning. Another negative for the tank is the fact it is very, very well angled and very, very well sloped. There's a lot of rounded armor, a lot of angled armor, and what that means is even though enemy tanks will bounce when you probably didn't expect them to, it also means that even if you angle, sometimes they will pen even though you didn't expect them to, because by angling your armor you end up flattening up a piece of armor that they might have bounced on anyway. So the armor is quite troll. Even though this tank can take a beating, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Another negative from the tank I didn't show you before is the hull of this tank. Means that the turret is quite far back on the tank, and a lot of the tank is exposed in front. So when you're going around corners in the Ram 2, quite a lot of your tank has to be exposed around the corner before you actually get your gun around, which means that enemy tanks have plenty of time to track you, have plenty of time to get shots into you long before you think they might, because your gun is situated so far back on the tank. Another negative for the tank is the gun is slightly off center. The turret is on the right hand side of the tank, so if you look at where the gun is, most of the left hand side of your tank is exposed. So again, if you're trying to side scrape, if you're fighting around corners, just be aware if you're fighting around a left hand corner, you're going to be exposing a lot more tank than you think you are. The top speed is 38 kilometers an hour, which again is not fantastic, but it is not poor. The traverse speed is pretty average as well. Moving on to view range, and the view range is quite poor compared to the other tier 5 premium tanks. Compared to tier 5 tanks in the game, 330 meters is not good, but it's not terrible. There are a lot of tanks with worse view range. When it comes to the gun, it is very, very similar to its armor. It is either very, very good or very, very bad. Lots of positives and negatives in here. It has a high rate of fire and its DPM is insane. The alpha damage is not that great and it can cause you problems because you don't have enough alpha damage to track tanks as they come around corners. However, that high rate of fire creates a big negative, which is the gun reloads faster than you can aim, and it can cause you to miss a lot of shots. And in addition to missing a lot of shots because of the aim time, you also miss a lot of shots because the accuracy on the gun is not fantastic either at 0.43. So the gun is not great, but it's not bad. It also has okay penetration if you're top tier, but if you're in higher tier games, you probably end up firing some premium ammo, but the premium ammo is pretty good on the tank. So all in all, the gun has its positives and it has its negatives. As a crew trainer, the Ram 2 is exceptional. It's a very, very good crew trainer, and you'll be able to train medium crews all the way up to tier 10. So all in all, I don't think the Ram 2 sets the world on fire. I think it is a very, very good tank. I think it is pretty underrated. I don't think you see a lot of them in game, but I think that the Ram 2 can hold its own against any other tier 5 medium tank in the game, premium or otherwise. When it's top tier, the Ram 2 can be a monster. When it's bottom tier in a tier 7 game, it can still do a job. Its stats are not fantastic in some places, but it's not bad. I think it's a pretty solid tank, and it can be quite situational. The gun works or it doesn't, and the armor works or it doesn't. So overall, the thing that really impressed me about the Ram 2 was its survivability. Yes, there were some games I got into where everything that shot me penned me and I died quite easily, but I was amazed at how many games I got into where that huge hit point pool in combination with some troll armor and some troll bounces meant I was able to survive. And again, that gun, it either works or it doesn't, and when it does work, you can put out damage very, very quickly, and I was able to not only survive some situations, but I was able to shoot my way out of situations that I probably wouldn't have been able to in any other tier 5 medium premium tank. So the survivability of this tank really did surprise me, and that survivability, along with the fact it's a decent crew trainer, along with the fact that it's got a 440 horsepower engine, which means the tank doesn't struggle too much on hills, and 10 degrees of gun depression, which means I can use it on slopes. I can use its gun depression to get my gun on target without exposing too much of my tank, and the fact that this tank can do a job even when it's bottom tier in a tier 7 game. Admittedly, you do have to fire some premium ammo now and again in the tank, but I think it's probably worth it. 1750 gold is quite expensive. And if you are short on gold or can't afford it, I would recommend waiting to pick up this tank when it is on a half-price sale. I don't think it's a bad tank. I don't think it's an amazing tank, but I think it's a very, very solid tank, and I probably would recommend you get a Ram 2 at some stage. You're not going to be playing a lot of games in it unless you level up unless you're trying to level up a crew, but it's a lot better than I was expecting. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.